I'll now turn it over to Dr. Ross for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of our board and our community. It's certainly exciting to see the recognition of our schools, our magnet schools, and as we celebrated National School Counselors Week. You may have grown up with the word guidance counselor, but that is no longer what we use, right, Ms. Nero? It is school counseling, to recognize the full range of the supports that our school counselors provide to our students and our families, and we're certainly proud of the work that they do. As always, we are a system guided by three critical questions. Why did we do this work? How do we accomplish that why, and then what are our outcomes? Our vision is that we love and grow our students. Our mission is that we're focused on academic, social, emotional growth and development. And our strategic plan outcomes, 24 strategies that are facing 4 performance goals to ensure a future where every student feels loved in our schools and every student has demonstrated academic growth in our schools. The state strategic plan is that by 2030, 75% of our students will be at or above grade level. If we look at our winter assessment, you can see that we have work to do. This is the fall, this is the winter. Right now, 46% of our elementary students are not on grade level in English language arts. 57% of our math students are not on grade level in their math assessment. This is what our teachers and staff are working, and administrators are working every single day to be able to meet the challenges of those students in that red so that we can get them into blue. It's the work that we have with our supports, like our school counselors, that make that a success. We're also checking graduation rate, and that is something that is a daily task of our high schools to ensure that within 4 years of entering 9th grade, that the student not only graduates, but graduates college and career ready. If we look at our data, you can see that our district is constantly growing in our areas, even in the area of English language arts where we did not see growth over last year, we still growth over the last 5 years. So we can continue to work. As always, I don't want the board to forget the impacts of Act 114. These are huge impacts when it comes to our third grade students. And our third grade teachers are working very hard with an extra pressure on them because of the retention issues with third grade. So we're working really hard to bring 3 priorities this year. 1, supporting the classroom teacher, making sure that our teachers are supported, that they have the necessary equipment and tools and supports to help those students, to put a name behind those numbers so we can understand the challenges that exist for those students so we can overcome those. Teacher retention and recruitment, really excited about the work that we have done as a district in terms of retaining our teachers and recruiting. The recruitment event that was held in January was a huge success and showed the interest in School District 5. And then the work that we're currently doing to ensure not only a safe learning environment for our students, but productive learning environments for all students. So really, really excited about that. But as always, you have to be green and growing, looking for opportunities to grow. And we are working with our parent and student advisories to really get the feedback loop correct. We want to make sure that we're aligning our vision, our mission, and our outcomes, and we do that with feedback. Our parent advisories have given a lot of their time, our student advisories have given a lot of their time to understand the value propositions that they would like to see from School District 5 in Lexington and Richland counties. We asked our parent advisory, who represent parents from SICs and PTSOs across the school district, what are your expectations for School District 5? It was very clear that they wanted a school that provided instructional opportunities for my child. It came over and over. What was interesting is on the specifics were varied throughout the parent advisory, but each of the statements said, for my child. The challenge for a school district is now moving from a mass education system to an individualized learning platform that provides education for my child and their needs. I asked the parent advisory, let's take some time to define what that looks like for your child. They were able to come up with 5 key expectations. I asked them, of these 5 expectations, could you narrow it down to the most important expectation that you would like to see for School District 5? And 42% of the parent advisory said, for my child, to have a solid academic foundation that is useful for their future career paths. I want us to focus on what, and not only that, but the 29% talked about the same thing, ensuring that their children are safe and encouraged to learn and grow and not just pass. So that academic foundation tied to their future career paths. We asked the parents, what could you do as parents to assist in this in terms of your role in education? They were very informative, providing 44 different roles that parents could play. I asked if we were to bring these roles down to these 44 and condense it to 3. So the parent advisory went to work, bringing this down to the 3 most important roles. And you can see that of those, the number 1 role is being actively involved. I want a solid academic education for my child and their future, and I want to be actively involved in that. And so that is a huge piece of feedback for us as a district. As we move into the budget season, as we move into strategic planning, we want to make sure that we are making the connection between what the parents are asking for in our advisory and what we have in our strategic plan. To that end, we wanted to do the same process for the students. And so we brought our student advisor in. You can see them here. They represent all of the high schools, the 5 program, the center, and for School District 5. And we asked them, what are the expectations you have for School District 5? All but 1 are seniors, and so have been in our system. And they gave us 25 responses that you can see here. These were the expectations. When we asked the student advisory, what role do you play in making these expectations come to fruition? They gave us 10 roles. Now we asked the students, we wanted to do the same thing with the students that we did with the parents. However, we couldn't use cell phones. So we had to do it the old-fashioned way and do what's called a phenomenological study. This is from qualitative research, where you are trying to gain the lived experience from the students. An example of this is asking someone or 4 people what was their favorite thing about the fair. And if they listed 4 things from those 4 different people, you would get a host of different responses. But finding the lived experience would be finding what is continual through all the responses. So we did that with the student advisory. They broke up into groups. They took the 25 items and they listed their top 5, and we then from that tried to find the lived experience item, and we were able to do that. Working independently, each of them were able to complete the phenomenological study and found expectation number 4 was something that each of the individual groups believed that there was an expectation for their school district. That for teachers to meet each student's learning goal and to help them with their future career plans. We asked them, what are your roles do you play? And the students gave us a conditional statement. They said, we have different goals, Dr. Ross, but if schools assist students with identifying strengths and weaknesses, we'll do the following things. We'll get involved, we'll take advantage of our opportunities, we'll be self-driven and motivated. And so we're excited about the work that these advisories have done and are doing to help us be focused. It goes back to our mission, through everything to be focused on the academic, social, and emotional growth and development that is presented to our, that we say in our mission statement. To use that whole child continuum to make sure that every child is able to feel loved in our schools and have demonstrated academic success within our schools. We met with the teacher advisory, and we shared this data with the teacher advisory. We asked them to go through the strategic plan, the 24 strategies that we talk about at each board meeting. And what was beautiful is that when you align the school district's vision, the students, and the parents, you see a lot of continuity there. And when we asked the teachers to look through this strategic plan, they found 18 strategies that link to parent and student advisory expectations. If you refer to the budget planning, you will see that we will, in March, come back to the strategic plan for renewal and review. And we want you to see the work that went into how we align these strategies. So again, we're excited about this alignment work. I look forward to the plans that are coming out of the academics department with Ms. Tina McCaskill and how we're going to work to really hone in on these expectations of the parent advisory and the student advisory. So with that, before I conclude the superintendent's report, I would like to take any questions on this part as we have a guest who will present the conclusion of the superintendent's report.
So on the gifted IEP, so as a parent of a special needs student, I understand the work that goes into drafting IEPs, taking the time to meet with the heads of the different committees. Is that going to be for all gifted students for those classes? Is this going to be some sort of formula that they'll be able to plug in easier, or is it each one going to be like time for the teachers? Just trying to figure out how much more time this will add.
I understand. Yeah, one of the things we want to do is make this manageable. As you know, that our responsibility to IEPs will be resolute. We won't yield on that. But what we will provide for all parents is a success criteria. Those expectations that are those particular skills that needed to be met for all of the classes. That's what we're working on. In terms of individualized instruction, we're still working so that teachers are able to make that transition, using things like small group and the like. But this is not an IEP for all students. I want to make that clear. It's not an IEP for all students. But it is a first step in making sure that parents are involved in knowing what all students know. And let me give you an example of this, Mr. Bainham. If grades are coming out, let's say your child is in 5th grade math, and they get an 85. Do you know what that means? All right, we know it's a B, but in terms of the deliverables and those strengths and weaknesses, you remember the students said, well, what are my strengths and weaknesses within this 85? So one of the things we want to do is support the teachers and being able to say, well, within this, here are the standards that we are supposed to be assessed on, and here are the areas in which you're strong at. And that will give you a little bit more data as a parent, as a family, on what to improve on. I will say, however, and the things that we're planning is, because of the workload for the teachers, some of those interventions that are heavy will be mainly for those students who are not really doing well, who need severe interventions there. Yeah.
Well, I had a similar question. So I guess, because I had never seen the term gifted IEP. So IEP is individualized education plan, which is mandated for children that have disabilities. So is this already happening, or there's a plan to expand that, or we're just calling it IEP, but it's not real? I guess I'm a little confused.
So the terminology comes exactly from what the parent said. In the field, they call it twice exceptional children. And I'm going to let Ms. McCaskill, if you want to expand on kind of what we're doing in those areas.
Sure. That gifted IEP actually was from a parent that is got some information from another state, and they were using that language that kind of came through that. So it's not a gifted, it's not like our academically gifted students will have an IEP, so it is not that. So we are looking at success criteria, which is just teacher clarity with what students need to know. And then with that list, you'll have a list of that by 9 weeks of what students need to know. And then for those students, like Dr. Ross said, those students who are not performing well, our intervention, part of our MTSS program, will be to identify a very specific plan for those students with what skills they need to know, what they don't know yet, and then how are they going to be able to accomplish that. So all students will have a list, first 9 weeks in reading, these are the success criteria of what I need to know how to do. So all students will get that. And then our intervention struggling students will get a little more detailed program so that teachers can provide them with information about how they can be successful prior to the end of the 9 weeks.
So that's for all children, right? Okay. Is that what's being called the gifted IEP, or is that something else?
That was part of that discussion, and that particular parent and I've had lots of discussion around this, about what they were looking for. And really what it is, okay, if my child's gifted, I don't want my child to have to sit and maintain at grade level if they're ready to go beyond grade level. And so that's what these success criteria will actually be able to help us with, because if we know at 4th grade, this is 4th grade level, and this child has mastered 4th grade, we also have our 5th grade success criteria. So it will help parents to know, well, if they've mastered this, then they can move to this level. And so it will just help identify very specifically what those skills are.
I had one other question. That's all right. So going back, this is kind of going back to the beginning of your presentation, but I was just curious, with the kind of relates to the MAP testing. Currently, for 1st and 2nd grade, what is our average class size and what is our maximum class size for those grades?
I apologize, which grades were you asking
Just
about?
1st and 2nd.
Okay, so for 1st grade, we have 22 as our max class size for non-Title I schools. Our Title I schools are at 18, and that's 1st and 2nd grade.
And is that just one teacher, or do they also have assistants?
That's one teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? All right, Dr. Ross.
All right, so for the conclusion of the superintendent's report, I'd like to welcome a special guest from the Executive Director of the Irmo Chapin Recreation Commission, Mr. Mark Smyers, and he's going to present the Lower Saluda Greenway project. To that end, we're excited to see what happens in our community with our district partners. As you know, ICRC is a big part of our community footprint, and so to Director Smyers, we appreciate the work. We know that there's so many parties involved in this, but I've seen it needs a leader, and we appreciate your leadership. So, Mr. Smyers.
Thank you so much. That's a very kind welcome. Madam Chair, fellow board members, and Dr. Ross, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be in front of you today and kind of share a vision. Honestly, the project that I'm going to unpack for you and where we are in kind of today's timeline, this is a 40-year dream, actually. The original plans that call for the Lower Saluda Greenway stem all the way back into the late 80s and early 90s, and it actually called for a regional park in that plan, and that was some of the early ideas of Saluda Shoals Park today. It was in that same plan. And so this idea of the Lower Saluda Greenway has been out there. We've been pursuing it as a community for a long time. So why now? What's different today versus where we were back then? What's a little bit unique is we saw coming is the construction of the Saluda River, the section behind the zoo, the Saluda River Riverwalk back there. It's a term I'm struggling with, Riverwalk. But that section behind the zoo is that bridge that becomes our opportunity to, if we were to build our greenway prior to that moment, we would build a trail that it just ended. But now we're building connectivity, and that's a totally different conversation. That's what really motivated us in 2019 to pursue a feasibility study in partnership with the Central Midlands Council of Governments to try to unpack what is it really going to take in order for us to pursue the Lower Saluda Greenway in totality. We also partnered with the Midlands Business Leadership Group right along that timeline, and they really helped us drive this forward across the Midlands. So this is a project that is in our community, but it's one of those that throws a pebble in the pond and makes a big ripple across the whole Midlands area. I think this works, so let me try this. Hey, yeah, perfect. So if you can see this image, and if it is a challenge, I can get you more information down the road. But this is what I'm showing you today is actually phase 1 and phase 2 of the Greenway project. Phase 3, which I'm not going to talk about, is actually tied up in the Carolina Crossroads project and the timeline associated with the I-20 and the I-26 bridge. And that is a funded section of the project in partnership with the Central Midlands Council of Governments as a alternative transportation plan or project. But I don't want to cast a vision that's so far down the road. Does that make sense? But these two projects are actually on our doorstep. So I want to unpack these two projects for you, and then hopefully not take up too much time and answer any questions you might have. So project 1 or phase 1 starts at the dam, right up at the intersection of 6 and 60. It calls for an on-grade crossing right across there. So you can see the lake right there and the intersection in the upper top left corner there. There's a sidewalk in existence today. That sidewalk comes to a conclusion right there where that arrow is pointing. We're going to pick up right where that sidewalk ends, and we're going to take it into the woods as soon as possible. A trail experience. There's all kinds of different pedestrian infrastructures out there that will definitely get you from A to B, but they're not going to have the experience that you're looking for and what we're aiming for with this. This is a quality of life amenity. This isn't just a means of getting from one location to another location. And so we want to take it in the woods as soon as possible. And our initial trailhead sits right there. This is kind of the biggest, flattest, closest area that we can get to in order to build a trailhead with a building and parking lot and all the gating systems we'll need in order to operate that successfully. And folks will be able to come off Bush River Road there and park at that upper parking lot. And that's where they kind of kick things off. The trail itself is, in the high-density areas, is going to be 12 feet wide, which is wider than a typical trail, for sure. But in these areas here, we're expecting a higher amount of traffic in those spaces. And so, you think of a small family that's going to kick off a journey down the trail, and they got 2 with stride bikes and the dog. And that just takes a lot of room in order to meet that moment. And then you got the real runner and the real cyclist coming the other way. We got to have room for that experience to make sure everyone stays safe. And so in those high-density areas, so that's going to be around trailheads or different interactions with other connection points, those are going to be 12 feet wide. When we get out into some of those outskirts, we don't need to have that 12 feet width the whole way. It's going to be one of our cost-saving measures to make sure our project stays in line. We're going to taper it down to a 10-foot width. Still have a lot more room than the typical path, which is about 8 feet. We've had 8 feet at Saluda Shoals Park for an extended period of time. We've already found 8 is just not enough in typical usage. So we definitely wanted more than 8. We're happy with 10. But in those high-density areas, we wanted that 12 in order to, make sure everyone's journey kicks off as they want to. So we take off past the trailhead. This is kind of some early renderings of that trailhead building. We were really... we didn't want just the basics. We wanted to be something that felt special and was aesthetically pleasing. These are parks In parks, aesthetics matter. We really just can't hit the bottom level. We've got to actually take a lot of that into account as we develop. And so here's some different renderings. This is where the restrooms will be. There'll be a little gate office as well as some vending machines, stuff like that. As we take off, and so we're going to continue to go from the left of this slide to the right as we move away from the dam in the lake. So we're over on the left-hand side. We are trying to be as light on the land as we can. We're trying to get as close to a finished product at ribbon cutting rather than going in and just blazing the path we want. We're going to be as sensitive as we can to make sure we can highlight some of those treasures and not just because the line goes through there, we're going to go through that tree. We're actually, each section is going to be hand laid out to make sure we have the right kind of bob and weave. So this shows some of that taper. That's following some of the topography in order to make sure we remain ADA the entire distance. So that's very unique for our community. Trails are not required to be ADA, that 12-in-1 rise and run. But for the duration of our construction, we will be ADA compliant the whole way. And so this follows down a little hill right here, but we will still have some nuance as we bob and weave amongst some of those beautiful trees that we come across. And we're going to cut behind the Lexington County trash collection site and really get as tight as we can. This area right here is actually where we have to thread the needle the most. With those overhead power lines, with the trash collection site, both Lexington County Trash Collection and Dominion Energy, which Dominion Energy has been a tremendous partner for us this entire way. They've been so supportive. But we didn't want to run straight across those driveways because when you're coming off Bush River Road, there's not a lot of time for that vehicle to come to a stop as you're coming to that vehicle pedestrian interaction moment. We really need to make sure we are keeping our pedestrians at the highest level of safety in those moments. So rather than even mess with it, we wanted to go behind that site. And so Dominion was very gracious to allow us to skirt right along there, and we're working closely with them to make sure that stays as safe as possible. So we continue on. We do still have some of that nuance, and so on this slide, I always kind of touch on there's a difference in our design. It is not designed to AASHTO standards. So AASHTO is the International Building Code that is designed to cycling specific. And so that is, you're going to maintain certain corners in order so they can maintain certain speeds. There's banking, there's all kinds of different stuff. That is not what we're designing to. We are designing to recreational biking, recreational cycling, not true cycling. And so this shows some of that. We are going to keep some of that character in the experience, but that it also is intentional to keep our cyclist speeds. If you're on a modern, bike today, you can actually really get moving. In like that example I shared earlier, that small family with a couple on stride bikes and the dog, and then you have someone on a bike that's really moving, we've got to design to a standard that's not going to maybe allow that speed to get that high. And so a lot of that nuance is there intentionally to make sure those speeds stay reasonable. Plus, who knows what's coming with all these e-bikes, and speeds on trails is a whole nother conversation. But we're going to continue on down. This is where we cross over in front of the McMeekin Station entrance. Again, we are coming off the road as far as we can. This is where we're going to be probably the most heavy-handed out of the entire project, is removing a good section of that bank in order to make sure we meet our ADA as we drop down that bank, but step away from the road as far as possible. And we're going to come in right at their gate, so the vehicles have to come to a stop in order to interact with their gating system, and then we go right through right where they're stopped. One unique aspect of what we have today versus where we were when we kicked off in 2019 is every design up until today continued parallel to the road and went on down. Like I mentioned, Dominion's been a tremendous partner with us, and they're actually allowing us to cut down earlier right there to get down to the river as soon as possible, which that's the highlight. As soon as we can get down to the river is what we're after. Plus, the topography really gets quite challenging the higher you go up, and our ADA compliance gets even harder. So actually, Dominion's graciousness has afforded us the opportunity to create something that's a higher value in experience, meaning closer to the river, sooner, and create more access to the river, but also maintaining that ADA compliance. So we cut away from the road, we go down across those power lines, and then we get down. There's a good section of boardwalking that we'll have to do. It's a little bit wet right there. As we come in, make that corner, and we get down to the river very, very soon, which is awesome. So then we take it on out parallel to the river, all the way down. That right there is Sandy Island. I don't know if you have ever been on the river. There's an island on up from the upper boat ramp at Saluda Shoals Park. Great little trout fishery. I've been up here before and seen otters and all kinds of trout in those shallow waters right there. So that's pretty cool. We'll continue on down parallel to the river. There's some small bridges that we'll have to build, and then a bigger bridge right here before we get actually into Saluda Shoals Park. That will have to drop in place with a crane. But we'll come in, and that's where we enter in at the upper boat ramp of Saluda Shoals. So that's phase one. So that connects the lake to Saluda Shoals. Phase two, well, let me back up. In existence today on Saluda Shoals is already trail parallel to the river in existence. And so that we can kind of embrace what we have. We'll have to do a little bit of work because a lot of this is 8 feet. We'll tackle that as we need to, but as we continue down into Project 2, this is when we come out the other side of Saluda Shoals, and that is right next to the lower boat ramp on Saluda Shoals, and we're getting onto Shaw Industries property. So as we leave Saluda Shoals and we cut across, Shaw Industries has, again, also has been a tremendous partner in this effort and been very supportive all along. They have a water intake right there that we'll need to protect with some fencing, and also we're going to fence their entire property. But we'll run along, they have a nice little wetlands that we'll come up next to, and then we'll dip down close to the river as soon as possible. We'll cross over the City of Columbia sewer expansion that they just completed within the past couple of years, and we want to get on the other side of that sewer expansion because we're going to leave our fence up along the wood line, create a little distance so you don't feel like you're heading in a tunnel, and then we're going to get down along the river into the woods again and follow parallel to the river all the way down. This bridge right here is the largest bridge out of all 3 phases, crossing Kinley Creek. And as soon as we cross over that space, we get back into Dominion property, and that's the Gardendale boat ramp, which is the end of our phase 2. So both of these projects, Project 1, phase 1, is completely done with design. We are wrapping up our last bit of permitting with FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And we have a contractor under contract today to begin as soon as we get that full clearance from them. We'll be able to issue that notice to proceed. The contract period currently is for 15 months. So if that kicks off relatively soon, phase 1, we're looking at somewhere around next year, maybe middle of the year, depending on how construction goes. You guys are fully aware of how construction goes. I put a giant asterisk next to that date. But we are going to push it as far as we can, as hard as we can in order to get it over the finish line. Phase 2 is a little bit behind phase 1 from a design standpoint. We've got some more work here up at the trailhead in order to complete, and then we'll be pursuing phase 2. Both phases obviously funded. Phase 3 is also funded. But Phase 3, like I mentioned earlier, is tied up in that Carolina Crossroads project, of which they've been great partners and are fully aware of our project. We're actually written into the scope of work for the Carolina Crossroads project that they will not design us out of our opportunity to build the trail underneath those bridges, which is a great thing to do. And I'm so thankful to have their support to make sure our resource is going to be protected when it's our time to come in there. Current timeline for Phase 3, the first bridge will be done, as I'm told, in 2029. And then the second bridge, which is the I-26 bridge, will be done in 2030. And that's when we drive the Golden Spike. We connect our communities, and you'll be able to go all the way down behind the zoo. By that point, the River Alliance should be done with their pedestrian bridge over the Broad, which ties us in all the way to Columbia, West Columbia and Casey, the full picture. So it's a tremendous resource. Like Dr. Ross was kind of touching on, quality of life matters. It matters to our community. It matters to us as residents. It matters to our students. The experience they have, obviously in your schools, but also as they live in our community, their ability to connect with nature, to get out as a stress reliever, as an opportunity to run and exercise. These are the things that we focus on, is that wraparound approach of quality of life to help our community meet its needs when it needs it. You know, you don't know when you need it. It just needs to be there for you. And I see that Greenway and the opportunities that it's going to afford as one of those kind of resources. It's going to be there when you need to escape. Nature has that beautiful ability to steal your attention when you need it. When you're out there hiking and walking, your phones stay in your pocket and you connect and you're present, and it's a tremendous stress reliever. I see that, and I see that vision for our community. So from the social, emotional aspects for our community, but also as an economic driver, this is a right now conversation for a lot of communities. They are trying to push as far as they can in order to get as much connectivity and pedestrian infrastructure as possible. There's a lot of resources. You think of the Swamp Rabbit Trail, you think of some of the things that Charleston's doing with their greenways. There's a lot of effort around trying to have these kind of amenities, and we're very fortunate that the river has protected this resource, and it's now available for us to begin to pursue. So, great opportunity. I'm excited to be able to get out there and tell the world a little bit more about it, and we look forward to a groundbreaking of which you'll get invitations soon. And what I'm really excited about is the ribbon cutting. Groundbreakings are fun, but the ribbons, those are really great. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I'll answer any question you might have,
Do we have any questions?
except for pickleball.
Okay.
I was not going to ask that, but since you brought it up. First of all, I'm excited about this. I'm a big fan of the Palmetto Trail. I had a couple of questions. One, will there be any fees involved?
Yeah, we are not going to get any more tax resources in order to operate all this amenity. And so we're going to have to generate some sort of revenue in order to operate.
The reason I ask that is I know that the schools and the Irmo Chapin Park have this agreement, and I know we have a lot of running clubs at the elementary, and we got cross country, and a lot of folks that would probably love to take advantage of having another place to run.
Yeah.
Now, is this going to be, you said it's ADA approved, will it be concrete?
Yes.
Or it is going to be concrete?
It is going to be concrete. So we found, going through the 2015 flood with Cedar Shoals Park, I was actually the park director when that flood happened. We found the concrete versus asphalt. So asphalt's non-structural, concrete is structural. It fights back against the flooding. Whereas asphalt, we had areas that were asphalt that actually bubbled up and floated in some areas. Yeah. And so right along the river, the whole thing will be concrete, but that's for the flooding moment, but also the trees are just so aggressive. Those root infrastructure that comes along up underneath those trails we'll be reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting.
Well, I know that I've walked back there before. It's beautiful. It's just unbelievably beautiful. Any lighting or?
Not today.
I know that's going to be a tough thing
Yeah.
to do back in there.
Yeah.
And what will be when all phases are done, what will be the total distance? Do you know?
Yeah, so our section, I'm estimating, and this is based on some GIS mapping, our total section within Lexington County, within your district, will be about 8 miles in total.
8 miles?
That's just our district. Once it's all connected, though, community-wide, I'm estimating somewhere around 27 miles. You'll be able to go all the way from Lake, all the way down to the KC Tennis Center, all the way.
Well, I suspect there are a few flat areas where you could build pickleball courts along the
Somewhere.
way. You might want to think about that.
We'll start
Just
looking.
consider.
We'll start looking.
All right.
Thank you. I'm excited about the program,
Thank
though.
you.
I know we had several questions on this end. I can start with Ms. Oden.
I was just curious about, like, I'm very familiar with the Swamp Rabbit Trail, and one of the things that's really nice about it is there are some commercial-type venues on there. Most of this, though, is bordered by whatever their
Dominion.
name is now.
Yeah.
And Shaw. So is there any, like, foreseeable commercial-type areas?
Well, in addition to that, it's the floodway and floodplain. And so that's really more the hurdle rather than those entities. Where I see opportunity for our community and our experience is more connective trails. And so this is the main thing, and I'm trying to keep the main thing the main thing. We've got bigger vision for more connective trails. Today, it's a great win for members of our community to load their bikes in their cars and drive to the trailhead and go experience. That's a great win. The win I'm after is you leave your garage, you grab your bike, you hop on a connective trail that takes you to there, and then you have your experience. That's really what I'm after. That's the rest of my career. Trails are very slow. It's a very slow process to pursue trails. They're linear parks. And there's a lot of partners that you got to rally in order to make those things come together. So we see great opportunities. In fact, there are ready-made experiences that we're ready to pursue once we kind of get a lot of this moving. We'll be able to kind of pick up the torch to run down some of those other connective trails. So to answer your question, it's those connective trails where I see the economic drivers that could potentially develop along those ways. The modern day American wants those kind of experiences along the trail. You can have whatever the beverage you would like to choose, coffees, whatever. They want to have that because it's not just about the exercise. A lot of people go straight to exercise as the experience. It's actually the connections. You call your buddy and you say, hey, meet me. We're going to grab a cup of coffee, and then let's walk. I got to talk. I got to get something off my chest. You know, that's really amazing. That's what we're after. But you got to have that vocation. They got to, or the business entity in order to provide that coffee or whatever it might be, in order to walk and enjoy. And that's also, I'm trying to champion this more and more. In lieu of lights, from a safety standpoint, lights, obviously you think lights is safety. I'm trying to maybe get more of the message out that, the Army adopts battle buddies. Battle buddies is actually real safety. When you go and do these things alone, even in a lit experience at 10 at night, you're still potentially vulnerable. You go with a buddy, and those percentages decline significantly. So it's a social experience. It's not just go, I'm going to go run 10 miles. It's I want to go run with my friend. Yeah. And that's where real safety kind of comes into play. And I want to encourage that as much as possible.
Mr. Bainum?
You answered it was mainly about safety. I don't know if there's funding for cameras every so many hundred feet, but mainly to protect females that are jogging by themselves, moms with little kids. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. We got to think about all those, so.
We do, and that's very much on our mind. We're trying to navigate this to where we'll be able to get conduit in this round. And that's, you think of conduit is future proofing. That's our ability to get some of that infrastructure in place when the next round of funding and opportunity could come up. We are going to operate this from dawn to dusk. It's not going to be one of those things that are open for the public to enjoy 24/7. We currently have 17 miles of trails in the district today. None of are lit. All are run dawn to dusk.
Ms. Barnhart, do you still have a question?
You actually just answered it about the hours of operation. But just to say, I'm very excited about this. I walk the dam or go to like Seven Oaks Park pretty much every day, and sometimes you have to pick between, I want the water experience or the kind of wooded experience. So this is going to be nice to have them both. It's interesting, that part about going behind the dump right there, but I'm sure y'all have got that covered. So very, very excited. I'm sure a lot of families are really going to enjoy this, mine included, so.
Yeah, I'm glad. That's if I had a different answer to that, I'd probably look at it, but we really ran out of anything that was reasonable. And so we're buddy-buddy with the trash collection side. But, yeah.
Is that it? Is that all our questions? Oh,
In terms of cell reception, do you anticipate any blind spots in cell reception? I guess thinking as a parent of teenager who, if it's 24 hours a day, I can see this being a congregation site. Will I be able to get in touch with my kid, no matter where they're at on that trail?
I don't have that answer. I couldn't tell you exactly cell reception, what's right and wrong. I can tell you in Sluder Shoals Park, we don't have issues with cell reception in the park itself. I have heard of on the river itself, and I don't know if that's because you drop down within the banks a little bit more, but on the river, you do run out of some self-service from time to time. I do know that. But in Sluder Shoals today, I can tell you, I haven't had any kind of those issues. Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.